I never thought a school could steal who you are. Not with force, not with threats, but with smiles, schedules, and sessions they called development. By the time I realized what was happening, I wasn't sure if the thoughts in my head were still mine. My parents drove me to Meadowbrook Academy on a Tuesday morning, 3 hours from the city, deep into countryside I'd never seen before. Forest on both sides of the road, endless and dark even in daylight. My mother kept her hands folded in her lap. My father's jaw was tight. "You'll like it there," my mother said for the 4th time. "It's an opportunity." I didn't answer. I'd stopped answering 3 days ago when they told me I was being transferred. Not asked, told. After the incident at my old school, they said I needed structure, guidance, a fresh start. The incident, that's what everyone called it. Like it wasn't me organizing a walkout after a teacher was caught taking bribes. Like it wasn't me standing in front of the principal's office with a list of documented violations. Like being right was somehow the problem. The gates appeared through the trees, tall black iron with stone pillars on each side. A golden plaque read, "Meadowbrook Academy, Excellence Through Development." My stomach turned. The campus looked like something from a college brochure. Brick buildings with white trim, perfectly maintained lawns, students walking in small groups between classes, everything clean, everything orderly, everything wrong in a way I couldn't name yet. A girl was waiting at the entrance, blonde hair pulled back, blazer perfectly pressed, smile so bright it looked painful. She waved as our car stopped. "You must be the new transfer," she said before I even opened the door. "I'm Claire. I'll be your student guide." My parents looked relieved. I felt my chest tighten. Claire walked me through the main building while my parents handled paperwork in the administrative office. Her voice was cheerful, rehearsed, hitting every word like she'd said this tour 100 times. Cafeterias on the 1st floor, libraries 2nd, dorms are in the east wing. Classes start at 8, end at 4, except Wednesdays when we have extended sessions. "What kind of sessions?" I asked. Her smile didn't change. "Personal development. Everyone participates. You'll love it." The hallways were too quiet. Students passed us in pairs or alone, nodding politely, speaking in low voices. No shouting, no laughter, no sound of lockers slamming or phones buzzing. Just this strange, controlled calm. "Is it always this quiet?" I asked. Claire glanced at me. "We value focus here. It helps everyone reach their potential." The cafeteria was the same. Long tables, students eating in organized groups, conversation barely above a whisper. No one was on their phone, no one was arguing or joking too loud. It felt like eating in a library. "Where do the transfer students usually sit?" I asked. "Anywhere you'd like. We don't really separate by grade or background. Integration is important." Integration. The words stuck in my throat. That night in my dorm room, I tried to make sense of everything. Single bed, small desk, window overlooking the forest. Everything was provided. Uniform in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom, even a welcome basket with snacks and a water bottle with the school logo. I picked up the bottle. The cap was already open. I set it back down. My roommate arrived an hour later. Short, dark hair, tired eyes, the same uniform as everyone else. She introduced herself as Morgan, shook my hand once, then sat at her desk and started reading without another word. "How long have you been here?" I asked. She said, 4 months, not looking up. "Do you like it?" She paused. "It's fine. You get used to it." I wanted to ask more, but something in her tone made me stop, like she was answering automatically, like she'd said those exact words before. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling. Outside, the forest was completely dark. No streetlights, no sounds, just black trees pressing against the windows. That's when I heard it. Soft, muffled, coming through the wall. Crying. I sat up slowly. The sound was coming from the room next door. Not loud, but desperate. Someone trying to stay quiet and failing. I got out of bed and pressed my ear to the wall. A girl's voice broken, whispering something I couldn't make out. I stepped into the hallway. The lights were dimmed for night hours, casting everything in blue shadow. I knocked gently on the door next to mine. The crying stopped immediately. Silence. I knocked again. "Hey, are you okay?" Footsteps. The door opened just enough for me to see a girl's face. Red eyes, forced smile, the same empty cheerfulness I'd seen all day. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just tired. Sorry if I bothered you." "You weren't bothering me, I just wanted to check." "I'm fine," she repeated, firmer this time. "Really, you should get some sleep. Tomorrow's your first session." She closed the door before I could respond. I stood there for a moment, my heart beating too fast. Everything in me wanted to knock again, to push, to ask what she meant, but I didn't. I went back to my room. Morgan was still at her desk, but she wasn't reading anymore. She was staring at the wall, her book open to the same page. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" she said without turning. I didn't answer. I got back into bed and pulled the blanket over my head. The first personal development session was scheduled for 9 a.m. the next day. Claire walked me there after breakfast, down a hallway I hadn't seen on the tour. The walls here were different, white, sterile, no windows. It smelled like antiseptic. "You'll be in room 3B, Claire said, checking her phone. "Sessions are 40 minutes. Just follow the instructions. It's easy." "What kind of instructions?" "You'll see." She stopped at a door marked 3B. "I'll wait out here. When you're done, we'll go to your next class." The door was heavy, sealed tight. I pushed it open. Inside, white walls, white floor, a single chair in the center facing a large screen, headphones resting on the seat, a camera in the corner, red light blinking. My stomach dropped. I turned back to the door. It had already closed behind me. I tried the handle, locked. "Please take your seat," a calm female voice said through a speaker I couldn't see. "I want to leave. The session will begin in 30 seconds. Please take your seat." My hands were shaking. I looked at the camera, at the chair, at the screen that was now glowing faint blue. 20 seconds. I sat down. My legs felt weak. "Place the headphones over your ears." I hesitated. Everything in me screamed to refuse, to bang on the door, to demand they let me out. But I also remembered my parents' faces in the car, the way they wouldn't look at me, the way they'd already decided. I put on the headphones. The screen came to life. At first, it was just colors, soft gradients shifting from blue to green to purple. Calming, almost hypnotic. A low hum filled the headphones. Not quite music, not quite noise. Then words started appearing, flashing too fast to fully read, but slow enough to register. Relax, trust, belong, improve, obey. My chest tightened. I tried to close my eyes, but the voice in the headphones told me to keep watching. Gentle, insistent, like a teacher who knows you'll eventually listen. Images began mixing in, faces smiling, students laughing together, classrooms where everyone was engaged, happy, perfect, and underneath it all, that hum, that constant, vibrating hum that made my thoughts feel slow. I don't know how long it lasted. The screen said 40 minutes, but when it ended and the door unlocked and Claire was suddenly there, smiling and asking how I felt, it seemed like no time had passed at all. "Fine," I heard myself say. "I feel fine." And the strangest part was I meant it. For about an hour. Then the nausea started, the headache, the strange emptiness where my anger used to be. I sat through morning classes barely hearing the teachers. My hand took notes automatically. My mouth answered questions when called. But inside I felt distant, removed. At lunch, I sat with Claire and 2 other students I didn't know. They talked about homework and weekend plans. I nodded along, smiled when expected, spoke when prompted. It was easy, too easy. That should have scared me. Instead, I felt nothing. It wasn't until later, alone in the bathroom between classes, that I found it. A piece of paper folded small, tucked behind the toilet paper dispenser. Old, wrinkled, like it had been there a while. I unfolded it carefully. Handwritten in blue ink, shaky letters. "Don't let them erase who you are. Resist the sessions. A.M. My hands started trembling. I read it again, and something inside me awoke. That night, I didn't drink the water. I dumped it in the sink when Morgan wasn't looking and refilled the bottle from the bathroom tap, even though it tasted metallic and wrong. I stayed awake as long as I could, reading the note over and over until I'd memorized every letter. Someone had been here before me, someone who knew what was happening, someone who was trying to warn me. By the third day, I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way students who arrived angry, defiant, loud, would become quiet and compliant within weeks. How their eyes would go from sharp to soft. How they stopped asking questions. There was a boy in my history class who'd transferred 2 weeks before me. I'd heard him arguing with a teacher on his second day, challenging a point about government surveillance. Now he sat in the back row, hands folded, answering every question with the same flat correctness. I watched him during lunch. He ate slowly, methodically, staring at nothing. When someone called his name, he responded a second too late, like he had to remember who he was first. I was starting to feel it too, the pull toward compliance, the ease of not fighting. After each session, it got a little harder to care about the things that used to make me angry. But every night I read that note, and every night I forced myself to remember who I'd been before Meadowbrook. On Friday, I decided to find AM. The library seemed like the safest place to start. Students studied there in silent groups, spread across tables with textbooks open and laptops glowing. I walked slowly through the aisles, pretending to browse, watching faces. That's when I saw him, sitting alone in the back corner near the reference section, dark hair, sharp features, hunched over a book like he was trying to disappear into it. But his eyes weren't on the page. They were watching, alert, alive, different from everyone else. I walked past him once, twice. On the third pass, I dropped a pen near his table. He looked up. Our eyes met for just a second. Then he glanced down at the fallen pen, and I saw it. A small, almost invisible nod. I picked up the pen and kept walking. My heart was racing. 10 minutes later, I felt something brush against my hand as I reached for a book. A folded paper. I palmed it quickly and moved to a different aisle before opening it. Second floor, far left study room, 4:15 p.m. Come alone. I checked the time, 3:47 p.m. 28 minutes. I forced myself to stay calm, to keep pretending to read, to not look back at him. At exactly 4:14 p.m., I walked upstairs. The second floor was quieter, mostly empty. The study rooms lined the back wall, small glass cubicles with desks and chairs. The far left room had its blinds pulled down. I knocked once. The door opened immediately. He pulled me inside and closed the door, checking the hallway through a gap in the blinds before sitting down. "You found my note," he said. His voice was low, controlled. "A.M., I said. "Adrian Miller?" He nodded. "How long have you been here?" 6 days. "How many sessions?" 5. He exhaled slowly. "You're still early. That's good. The first 2 weeks are critical. After that, the conditioning sets deeper." "Conditioning," I repeated. The word made my skin crawl. "That's what they're doing." He pulled out a small notebook from his backpack, worn and filled with cramped handwriting. Names, arrival dates, behavioral changes. The patterns are consistent. He flipped through pages. I saw lists of names, some crossed out, some circled, notes in the margins, compliant by week 3, memory gaps, personality shift. Students who don't fit the system get sent here, troublemakers, activists, kids who question authority, and Meadowbrook fixes them. "The sessions," I said. "Audio-visual conditioning combined with chemical agents. They put something in the water supply. I tested it." He showed me a page with chemical formulas I didn't understand. Mild sedatives, compounds that affect memory formation and emotional regulation, enough to make you suggestible without being obvious. My mouth went dry. That's illegal. It's also funded. He pulled out a printed document from the back of his notebook, partially redacted government letterhead. Program name, Behavioral Correction Initiative, Adolescent Trial Phase. I felt sick. We're experiments. Test subjects, he corrected, for a program that wants to rehabilitate problematic youth without traditional punishment. They sell it to parents as educational therapy, elite boarding school for troubled teens. Most parents don't ask questions. How are you still? I gestured at him, at his awareness. I figured it out early, week 2. He showed me another page. I stopped drinking the campus water. I bring bottles from outside, stored in my locker. During sessions, I don't look directly at the screens. I memorize poetry in my head, focus on that instead of the prompts. It's not perfect. I still feel the effects, but I'm functional. Why not just leave? Tell someone. His expression darkened. I tried, week 4. Called my parents. They didn't believe me, said I was making excuses, being dramatic. The school had already told them I might act out as part of my adjustment. Any complaint I make just confirms I need more treatment. What about going to the police, the media? With what proof? A teenager's word against a school with government backing? I needed evidence first, real documentation. That's what I've been collecting. He looked at me carefully. You're different. You're resisting without trying. That means something. Like what? I don't know yet, but if we're going to expose this, I can't do it alone. I need someone they haven't fully conditioned, someone who can still think clearly. I looked at his notebook, at all those names. How many students go through here? 20 to 30 per year. Some adapt completely and graduate cured. Others, he trailed off. Others what? He turned to a page at the back, a list of names with dates and a single word next to each. Transferred. Where do they get transferred? I asked. I don't know. They just disappear from the roster. No graduation, no trace. A chill ran through me. You think something happened to them? I think if the conditioning doesn't work, there might be a backup plan. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it and went pale. What? I asked. Monitoring alert. Attendance tracker. They know we're both in the library, but not in common areas. So they track unusual patterns, solo meetings, isolated conversations, especially between transfer students. He started packing his notebook. We need to leave separately. You first. Go back to your dorm. Act normal. When can we meet again? I'll leave another note. Don't look for me in public. Don't acknowledge me. He paused. And don't trust anyone else here. Not other students, not staff, not your roommate. Claire? I asked, thinking of her constant smiles. He looked at me seriously. Especially not Claire. She's been here 2 years. 2 years? My stomach dropped. Why would she stay that long? Because she's not a student anymore, he said quietly. She's a monitor. I opened my mouth to ask more, but he shook his head. Go, now. I left the study room, forcing my legs to walk normally, down the stairs, through the library, into the hallway. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. When I got back to my dorm, Morgan was lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling, earbuds in. I sat at my desk and opened a textbook, pretending to study. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Adrian's notebook, all those names, all those students who came here like me and left as someone else, or didn't leave at all. I thought about my parents, about how quickly they'd agreed to send me here, how they never visited, never called to check in, how they looked relieved when the gates closed behind us. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again, crying from the next room. This time, I didn't knock. I pressed my ear to the wall and listened. I don't want to forget, the girl was whispering. Please, I don't want to forget. My chest felt tight. I wanted to help her, to tell her she wasn't alone, but I didn't even know her name. The next morning at breakfast, I saw her in the cafeteria, blonde, probably 15, sitting with a group of students, smiling, laughing, completely normal, like last night never happened. I forced myself to eat, forced myself to smile at Claire when she sat down across from me. "How are you adjusting?" she asked brightly. "Good," I lied. "Really good." She studied my face for a moment too long. "I'm glad. Some transfers take longer to integrate, but you seem compliant." The word made my skin crawl. "Just trying to fit in," I said. She nodded, satisfied. "That's exactly the right attitude." When she looked away, I saw it. The smallest chip in her perfect facade. Just for a second. Her smile slipped, her eyes went distant, and she looked just as empty as everyone else. Then she blinked, and the mask was back. She'd been here 2 years. How much of her was even left? My second personal development session that day was different. The voice in the headphones was more insistent, the images more direct, faces of students who'd improved, before and after comparisons, angry, defiant expressions transforming into calm, happy smiles. This is who you could be. This is who you should be. Let go of resistance. Trust the process. I tried Adrian's technique, closed my eyes part way, focused on memorizing song lyrics in my head, anything to block out the prompts. But the voice kept pushing through. Why fight? Isn't it easier to belong? Isn't it better to be liked? Your parents sent you here because they love you. They want you to succeed. They want you to be better. Better, better, better. When the session ended, I stumbled out of the room. Claire was waiting, but this time she wasn't alone. A man in a gray suit stood next to her, older, maybe 50, with wire-rimmed glasses and a clipboard. "This is Dr. Reeves. He oversees the personal development program." Dr. Reeves smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "How was your session today?" "Fine," I said automatically. "Claire mentioned you've done adjusting well. That's excellent to hear." He made a note on his clipboard. "We like to check in with new students personally, make sure the program is meeting your needs." "It is," I heard myself say. "Good, very good." He studied me for a moment. "Have you made any friends yet? Besides Claire, of course." My heart skipped. "A few people in my classes." "Anyone in particular?" I thought of Adrian, of his notebook, of his warning. "Not really. Everyone's friendly." Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. "That's what we like to hear. Integration is important. But we also want to make sure students aren't forming exclusive attachments. Sometimes new students seek out other new students. It can reinforce old behaviors." "I haven't noticed that," I said carefully. "Of course not." He smiled again. "You're doing wonderfully. Keep it up." He walked away. Claire watched him go, then turned to me. "He only checks in on students who show promise. You should feel honored." But the way she said it made my blood run cold. That night, I found another note, this time slipped under my door. "They're watching you more closely. Someone reported unusual library activity. We need to be more careful. Eat the food, drink the water, act like it's working. I'll contact you when it's safer. A.M." I read it 3 times, then flushed it down the toilet. For the next week, I followed Adrian's advice. I smiled more, participated in class, made small talk with students I didn't know, drank the water even though it made my thoughts feel foggy, attended every session without complaint, and slowly, horribly, I felt myself changing. Not completely, but enough. The anger I'd carried for so long started to feel distant, unimportant. When I thought about my old school, the protest, the walkout, it felt like something another person had done, someone I used to be. I caught myself laughing at Claire's jokes, agreeing with teachers without question, completing assignments with perfect obedience. And the worst part, it felt easier, better. Like the fight was too exhausting and giving in was relief. I read Adrian's first note every night, touching the paper like it was the last piece of who I used to be. Don't let them erase who you are. But what if they already had? On day 14, everything changed. I was walking back from my afternoon session when I heard voices in an empty classroom. The door was slightly open. "The girl in 3B is showing resistance markers," a man's voice said. I recognized it. Dr. Reeves. "Should we increase her protocol?" A woman's voice. "Not yet. We want to see if social modeling works first. She's been integrated with monitor students. If that fails, we'll move to intensive treatment." My heart stopped.
"What about the Miller boy?" the woman asked. Silence. Then, "He's been scheduled for transfer, end of the month. Does he know?" "No, and he won't, not until it happens." I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. "Where are we sending him?" "The long-term facility, same as the others who don't adapt. Let them try more aggressive techniques." Footsteps approached the door. I ran. By the time I reached my dorm, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the doorknob. Morgan wasn't there. The room was empty. I grabbed a piece of paper and wrote 3 words.
They know. Run. I had to warn Adrian, had to get this to him somehow. But how? We couldn't meet, couldn't be seen together. He'd said to wait, to be careful. But if they were transferring him at the end of the month, we were out of time. I waited until 3 a.m. when bed checks were done and the hallways were empty. Then I snuck out, moving through shadows, heading for the boys' dormitory. I'd seen Adrian's room number once on a class roster I'd memorized. 2nd floor, room 217. The building was silent. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an alarm. I found his door and slid the note underneath. Then I heard voices. Security guards, doing a late patrol. I ran to the stairwell, taking steps 2 at a time, my heart hammering, made it back to my building just as I heard them enter the boys' dorm behind me. In my room, I collapsed on my bed, adrenaline crashing. The next morning, Adrian wasn't at breakfast, or lunch, or dinner. Claire noticed me looking around. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, "just tired." "You should rest more. You've been doing so well, we wouldn't want you to backslide." That night, a new note appeared under my door. "Got your warning. Too late. They moved my transfer up. Leaving tomorrow. Need you to finish this. Evidence is hidden in library. Section 200F. Book titled Developmental Psychology, 3rd edition. Notebook is inside. Dead it out. Tell the truth. A.M." My hands were shaking. Tomorrow? I had to get that notebook tonight. At 1 a.m., I left my room. Morgan was asleep, drugged by the water she drank every day without question. The hallways were dark, but I knew the patrol schedules now, 10-minute gaps between rounds. The library door was locked, but the window near the periodicals section had a broken latch I'd noticed weeks ago. I slid it open and climbed through. Inside, the library felt massive in the dark. Moonlight through windows created long shadows between bookshelves. I found section 200F in the back corner. Developmental Psychology, 3rd edition, thick, heavy, dusty like no one had touched it in years. I pulled it from the shelf. The notebook fell out. I grabbed it and started to leave. That's when I heard the door unlock. Footsteps. Multiple pairs. "Check the windows," Dr. Reeves' voice said. Someone triggered the sensor. I ran deeper into the library, clutching the notebook, found a reading alcove behind the reference desk and pressed myself into it, holding my breath. Flashlights swept the aisles. "Nothing here," a security guard said. "Check again. The system doesn't malfunction." They were getting closer. I could hear their footsteps echoing on the tile floor. That's when I saw her, standing at the end of the aisle, illuminated by moonlight through the window. Claire. She was staring right at me, right at my hiding spot. Our eyes met. She opened her mouth. I waited for her to call out, to expose me. Instead, she turned to Dr. Reeves. "I'll check the 2nd floor." She walked away. The guards continued their sweep on the 1st floor. I waited, frozen, until their footsteps faded. Then I ran, out the window, across the courtyard, back to my building, into my room. I shoved the notebook under my mattress and got into bed fully clothed, my heart pounding against my ribs. Why had Claire let me go? The next morning, Adrian's seat in history class was empty. I asked a student next to me where he was. "Transferred," she said simply. "Happens sometimes."
At breakfast, Dr. Reeves made an announcement. Students, we want to inform you that Adrian Miller has been transferred to a more specialized facility that better suits his needs. We wish him well in his continued development. Polite applause, smiling faces. No one questioned it. I felt sick. That afternoon, Claire sat next to me in the cafeteria. She didn't speak at first, just picked at her food. Finally, she leaned close. I know what you're trying to do. My blood went cold. I was like you once, she continued quietly. I thought I could fight it, thought I could expose them. I tried for 6 months. What happened? I whispered. She looked at me with eyes that were empty and sad all at once. I failed, and they gave me a choice: intensive treatment until I broke completely, or become part of the system. Help them instead of fight them. So you chose to help them? I chose to survive. She paused. But I haven't completely forgotten. Some nights I still remember who I was, and it hurts. Then help me, I said desperately. We can stop them together. No, she cut me off. We can't. They're too big, too funded, too careful. The only choice you have is the same one I had: give in or get transferred like Adrian. There has to be another way.
She looked at me sadly. There isn't, and I'm sorry, but tonight they're scheduling you for intensive protocol. Dr. Reeves thinks you've been resisting longer than expected. My stomach dropped. How long have you known? Since the library. I had to report it. If I didn't, they'd know I was compromised. She stood up. I'm sorry. I really am. She walked away. I sat there, frozen, as the cafeteria continued around me, students eating, talking, smiling, all of them already gone. That night, they came for me. Not with force, with kindness. Dr. Reeves knocked on my door at 9 p.m. with 2 staff members I'd never seen before. We'd like to do an extended session tonight, just some additional development work. It'll help with your remaining adjustment challenges. I thought about running, screaming, fighting, but I also knew what would happen. They'd restrain me, drug me, do it anyway. So I went. They took me to a different room, not the small white chambers I'd been in before. This was larger. Medical equipment I didn't recognize, a bed with restraints. Please lie down, Dr. Reeves said gently. This process is more intensive, so we need to make sure you're safe and comfortable. The restraints weren't optional. They strapped down my wrists and ankles, not tight enough to hurt, just enough that I couldn't move. What are you doing to me? I asked, my voice shaking. Helping you, he said. You've been fighting your own improvement. We're going to make that easier. A woman in a white coat approached with an IV bag. What is that? I demanded. Just something to help you relax, make the conditioning more effective. She found a vein in my arm with practiced ease. No, I said. No, I don't want. Shh, Dr. Reeves soothed. This is for your own good. Your parents approved it. The words hit me like ice water. My parents know about this? Of course, they want what's best for you. They're paying for premium treatment. The IV went in. Within seconds, I felt warmth spreading through my body. My thoughts started to blur. Fight it, I whispered to myself. Remember who you are. But my own voice sounded far away. The screen above me came to life, brighter than before, images faster, the hum louder, vibrating through my bones. Let go. You don't need to fight. Your parents love you. They sent you here to become better. 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 I tried to close my eyes. The voice in the headphones told me to open them. I tried to turn my head. The restraints held firm. I tried to think of Adrian's notebook under my mattress, of all those names, of the truth. But the drugs were strong, and my mind was weak, and the images kept coming and coming and coming. I don't know how long it lasted. Hours. Days. Time stopped meaning anything. When I woke up, I was back in my dorm room, sunlight through the window, Morgan at her desk like nothing happened. Good morning, she said cheerfully.
You slept through breakfast. Feeling okay? I sat up slowly. My head felt stuffed with cotton. My memories were hazy. I remembered... What did I remember? There was something important, something I was supposed to do, but when I reached for it, the thoughts slipped away like smoke. Yeah, I heard myself say, I feel fine. And I did. I felt light, calm, like a weight had been lifted. I got dressed and went to class, sat next to Claire at lunch, smiled at Dr. Reeves when I saw him in the hall. Everything was fine. Everything was better. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, content, compliant. Then my hand touched something under my mattress. Curiosity made me pull it out. A notebook, worn, filled with handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened to the first page. Names, dates, notes about behavioral changes. I flipped through it slowly, not understanding why my chest suddenly felt tight, why my hands started shaking. At the back, a list of names with a single word next to each, transferred. And at the very bottom, in different ink, written recently, if you're reading this, they got to you, but you found it. That means part of you is still fighting. Remember, the evidence is real. Your anger was justified. Don't let them make you forget who you are. A.M. I stared at those words for a long time, and slowly, like a crack in glass, something started to break. I remembered the library, the note, Dr. Reeves' voice in the hallway, end of the month, transfer, long-term facility. I remembered intensive treatment, the IV, the restraints. Your parents approved it. My hands clenched around the notebook. They tried to erase me, but I was still here, and I was angry. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun. For the next 3 days, I played the perfect student, smiled at the right times, answered questions with appropriate enthusiasm, participated in sessions without complaint, drank the water, ate the food, let them think their intensive treatment had worked. But at night, I read Adrian's notebook, every page, every name, every documented pattern, and I made a plan.
The family integration ball was in 2 weeks, an event where parents visited campus to see their improved children, to congratulate themselves on making the right choice, to watch us perform our rehearsed perfection. My parents would be there, so would 24 others, and according to Adrian's notes, there was always media presence, local news covering the success story of Meadowbrook's innovative programs. If I was going to expose the truth, that was my moment. But I needed help, and there was only one person who might still have enough of herself left to care. I found Claire alone in the library on a Thursday afternoon, sat across from her without asking. She looked up, surprised. Everything okay? I know you reported me, I said quietly, and I know why. You had to survive. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. But I also know you remember who you used to be. Some nights, you said, you still remember. What do you want? She whispered. I slid Adrian's notebook across the table. To finish what he started. She looked at it like it might explode. They'll transfer you, or worse. They'll do that anyway, eventually. Everyone who resists gets transferred. You know that. She was quiet for a long moment. Even if I wanted to help, what could we do? We're 2 students against an entire system. The family ball, I said. Parents, media, witnesses. If we expose everything there, publicly, they can't just make it disappear. How? I told her my plan. Access to the audio system, a pre-recorded message playing through the speakers, evidence displayed on the presentation screens they use for slideshow tributes. My name is here to tell you what Meadowbrook Academy really is. I practiced the upload sequence a dozen times on paper. Claire memorized every step. I memorized the backup plan. The night before the family ball, we moved. Claire accessed the AV control room at 11 p.m. using her monitor credentials. I stood watch in the hallway, heart pounding. She plugged in the USB drive, started the upload. The progress bar moved agonizingly slowly. 10%, 15%, 20%. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. "Someone's coming," I hissed. "Just a few more seconds," Claire whispered back. 50%, 60%. The footsteps were getting closer. 75%, 80%. A security guard rounded the corner, saw me standing there. "What are you doing out of your dorm?" he demanded. "Couldn't sleep, just getting water." He studied me suspiciously, reached for his radio. Claire emerged from the control room, looking calm. "I was just running the system check for tomorrow's event. Found her wandering. I'll escort her back." The guard looked between us. "Everything secure in there?" "All set for tomorrow. You can verify the logs if you want." He considered it. "Just get her back to her room. Curfew violations get reported." Claire nodded and grabbed my arm, leading me away. Once we were out of earshot, she whispered, "It's done. The files are uploaded. Time to play 15 minutes into the ceremony." "Will it work?" "It has to." The next day crawled by. Parents arrived in expensive cars, students dressed in our formal uniforms. The gymnasium was decorated with banners and flowers, a stage set up with microphones and a projection screen. I saw my parents for the first time in weeks. They hugged me stiffly. "You look well," my mother said, studying my face. "Calmer." "They've helped me a lot," I said, the lies smooth on my tongue. My father nodded approvingly. "Worth every penny." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. The ceremony began at 2 p.m. Dr. Reeves stood at the podium, giving a speech about personal growth and the success of Meadowbrook's methods. Parents nodded along. A local news camera recorded from the side. Students sat in neat rows. Claire was 5 seats away, hands clasped in her lap. I could see her knuckles were white. 10 minutes in, Dr. Reeves introduced the slideshow. "We'd like to share some testimonials from our students about their experience here." The lights dimmed, the projection screen lit up. But instead of smiling student testimonials, something else appeared. Scanned documents, government letterheads, the words "Behavioral Correction Initiative," clear and damning. Dr. Reeves' smile faltered. "There seems to be a technical..." Then my voice filled the room. "My name is ANY, and I'm here to tell you what Meadowbrook Academy really is." Silence. Complete silence. They call it education, they call it development, but what they're doing is conditioning, reprogramming, using illegal substances and psychological techniques to erase who we are and make us compliant. Pages from Adrian's notebook appeared on screen. Names, dates, notes about behavioral changes. These are students who were sent here just like me because we questioned authority, because we didn't fit the mold, and this is what happened to them. My parents stood frozen, faces pale. The sessions aren't therapy, they're brainwashing. The water is drugged, the curriculum is designed to break resistance, and the students who don't adapt, they get transferred to long-term facilities where the conditioning is even more aggressive. Security guards started moving toward the AV booth. Dr. Reeves was shouting orders, but the recording kept playing. My parents paid for this. Your parents paid for this. They thought they were helping us, but what they were really paying for was our erasure. Chemical formulas appeared on screen, test results, internal memos discussing acceptable compliance rates. This is funded by a government program testing methods of behavioral control on minors. We are experiments, and every day you let this continue, more kids lose themselves. The guards reached the control room, started trying to shut down the system, but Claire had locked it. They'd need time to override. If you're watching this, if you still recognize the person your child used to be, ask yourself, is this improvement or is this loss? The screen went black. The lights came back on. Chaos erupted. Parents shouting, students confused. The news crew's camera was still rolling, capturing everything. Dr. Reeves tried to regain control. "This is a malicious prank, a disturbed student attempting to..." "Which student?" a father shouted. "The one you've been drugging?" More voices joined in, demanding explanations, demanding to see their children's medical records. The reporter pushed forward with her microphone. Security tried to clear the room, but parents refused to leave. Some students started crying. Others looked confused, like they were waking up from a dream. My mother grabbed my shoulders. "Did you do this?" "Yes," I said. "Because it's true. All of it." She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. "We were trying to help you. You were trying to change me." My father pulled me away from her. "We're leaving, now." But before we could move, police sirens wailed outside. Someone had called them. Maybe a parent. Maybe the news crew. It didn't matter. The truth was out. The investigation took 3 months. Meadowbrook Academy was shut down within the first week. Dr. Reeves and 4 other staff members were arrested. The government program was suspended pending review. Students were sent home or to legitimate therapeutic facilities. Many required extensive counseling. Some, like Morgan, my former roommate, never fully recovered their memories. Claire was cleared of wrongdoing. She testified about everything she'd witnessed, everything she'd been forced to do as a monitor. She moved back with her family and started real therapy. I found out Adrian was alive. The long-term facility was another conditioning center, but after Meadowbrook's exposure, it was rated 2. He was released. We talked once on the phone. He sounded tired but himself. "You finished it, the thing I couldn't." "We both did," I replied. My parents lost custody, not officially, but I refused to live with them, and my aunt agreed to take me in. I'm still angry at them. Maybe I always will be, but I'm also alive, myself, unchanged. I'm in public school now, regular classes, regular problems, teachers who actually teach instead of condition. I still have nightmares sometimes about white rooms and humming voices and the feeling of my thoughts being slowly replaced. But I also have something they couldn't take, my voice. 6 months after Meadowbrook closed, I was asked to speak at a congressional hearing about behavioral modification programs targeting minors. I stood in front of dozens of representatives and told them everything about the sessions, the drugs, the parents who paid to have their children erased. You can't fix a person by breaking who they are, and you can't call it education when the goal is obedience, not growth. The hearing led to new regulations, oversight requirements, bans on specific conditioning techniques. It wasn't enough to undo what happened, but it was something. A year later, I received a package in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single notebook, Adrian's, the original, and a note, "Keep it. Make sure no one forgets. A.M." I keep it on my shelf now, next to my school books and journals, a reminder that questioning isn't disorder, resistance isn't illness, and sometimes being difficult is the only way to stay human. They wanted to teach me compliance. Instead, I learned something far more valuable, that my voice, my anger, my refusal to accept what's wrong, those aren't flaws. They're exactly what the world needs. If you're listening to this, if you've ever been told you're too much, too difficult, too angry, don't let them convince you that changing who you are is the same as growing. Real education liberates, real development empowers, and real love accepts you exactly as you are, questions, rebellion, and all. Subscribe if this story reminded you that your voice matters, that your resistance has power, and that sometimes the most important lessons aren't taught in classrooms. They're learned when you refuse to be anyone but yourself.